And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching and playing recently. I'm Terry. Oh, and reading!
In reading!
Wow. Triple threat. I'm Terry.
I'm Mary Beth. And this week we are talking a Norse giant and his gay Oh, you said playing, and now I know what it is now. A Norse giant and his gay family. A movie about men being trash. Southern Gothic cryptids. Ooh,
What?
lesbian space necromancers. And a movie based on a podcast.
Wow.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts about that
I know.
one. I can't wait to talk about
we're
that.
really like running the gamut here, I have to say.
It's a lot, but now that I think I know what this Norse giant and his gay family are,
Okay.
tell me about what this is.
This is a reach. It's a
What's
reach. However, I am firmly convinced that all the men in God of War Ragnarok are queer. Because
I like this reading.
So,
Continue.
this is the sequel to 2018's God of War, which saw Kratos go from being a horrible, misogynistic, sexual assault, rapey sort of anti-hero to being dad. Boy.
Not daddy. It's not. And
He
it's
is
not
a father,
joke, y'all. He
and
actually is a father.
you know, have you played that God of War? Okay.
No, I've just watched a lot of people play it, so I'm familiar.
I
with
really
it.
liked
I
it,
just
but
haven't
like
played it.
this series is not exactly great for women characters, I would say, because God of War starts with the fridging of Kratos' wife, and the whole plot of it is to basically carry her ashes up to a mountain, kill a bunch of gods along the way, and in doing so have started Ragnarok. Well, they've started gosh, I am going to screw up saying this word. Fimbulwinter, which is like a 3-year-long winter that began at the conclusion of the previous game and leads into Ragnarok. And spoiler alert for those who haven't played the first game. I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil something. You find out that Atreus, Kratos' son, is also known by Loki, and he is half giant, as well as being a fourth god and fourth human, I think is how that genealogy works based on the two families. And this game picks up like I think 3 years later, and they're in the midst of Fimbulwinter, and they're trying to survive. They've in the first game pissed off Freya, and now she is a vengeful woman, because that's all we only have. There's only 2 female characters that I've seen so far in this game. We have Freya, who's a vengeful mother because you killed her son, and then we have and I don't even know how to pronounce her name. Where is it? Fuck.
That's a really bad sign. The only other woman is. Wait,
Well,
where's her name?
she
No
just
one
got
knows her
introduced,
name.
and
Oh, okay.
I'm about
How far into the game?
12
were
or
you?
13 hours in.
Oh, cool. Glad that the second female character
And-
introduced that far into the game.
Yeah,
I know it's like
but
it's
her
like a
story
40-hour game, right?
is all about being. Gosh, I really
still.
wish I could figure out what her name is. I'm going to do some digging while I talk. Her story is that she is like she has her own prophecy, because they find out the prophecy at the end of the first game, and yada yada yada. He's Loki. He's Kratos is gonna die. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
He has this that thing, and then Atreus / Loki meets Angrboda.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
Played by Layla De Leon Hayes, and her whole thing is that she has a prophecy, and it's basically to be part of his story. And so I'm like, okay, we're getting cringe here again, because like part of her like whole ethos, at least in this beginning part, maybe it'll subvert my expectations, I don't know, but given the track record for women in these games, I'm not expecting it. But she's really upset because now her part of the prophecy is over, and now her story is coming to an end. And I'm like, because of a male character. Like, this is awkward. But all the men in in Atreus' life, his father, the head of Mimir, who is like strapped to Kratos' ass, they bicker like married couple. They both have advice for Atreus, and they both end up acting as if they're parents to him. Even though Mimir keeps calling everyone brother, there is like, he is giving advice. He is telling Kratos to calm down and to like not push Atreus away. He gives advice to Atreus. There are the two dwarves that were introduced in the first game that are brothers, and they act like gay uncles for him. Mm-hmm. And then you meet Tyr, the other god of war, who is like this tall, gangly dude who doesn't want to be a god of war and doesn't want to fight anymore. And there's like a couple scenes where they're all having dinner. It is literally like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 men just sitting around a table and Atreus, and it's like, this is gay brunch. Like, I could look at these people and be like, okay, you two are these you two are these people at the gay brunch. You are this guy at the gay brunch. You are the two couples that are bickering over how to raise a kid. Like, that's pretty gay in my opinion.
I love it. Are you playing?
No, you play as Kratos for most of it, but there are a couple times where
for most of it,
the game follows Atreus, because the premise of this one is that if the first game in the Norse mythology is Kratos becoming a father and trying to grapple with that, this one is about a kid coming of age and trying to understand where he's coming from, not knowing that the prophecy is also going to potentially end with his father. So while he is like struggling with sense of identity and where his place in the world and teenage rebellion, his father is like trying to spend as much time with him as possible because he is afraid that the prophecy is going to end with his death. So very male dominated game. A lot of problematic aspects so far. Maybe they'll subvert it with the female characters, but it's a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed playing the first game, well, the previous game I should say, because this is like 9 games deep, I think, at this point. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of fucking
this is a lot of fun. I'm having a great time with it. It's just, oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
Pretty too, right?
It's like, gorgeous. They somehow, so I thought the last game looked pretty, and this game sort of ups that ante a lot. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying the story, even though, like I said, this game does not even pass the Bechdel test so far at all. No.
Look, we can't have it all. That's fine. I mean, like, God of War to me is like a testosterone oozing game too. You know what I mean? It's just funny that it's like, well, I guess we're just gonna keep it status quo for now. Again,
but
who
yeah,
knows?
But it's basically just a giant and his gay family, and I love it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds alright. I read that and I was like, what is this beautiful thing? And I was like, oh, okay.
But speaking about men and trash, what is this movie about men being trash?
So this is like the polar opposite of what you just talked about. So this is the new film Run, Sweetheart Run, directed by Shayna Festi, or Fest. I don't remember which one. It is out now on Prime Video, and it's good with a capital G. So this was a film that's been like stuck in like hell for a while because it premiered at, I believe it premiered at Sundance. It was supposed to screen it screened at Sundance in 2020. It was supposed to go to South by Southwest. The pandemic fucked it, and it's kind of just been stuck in a little bit of development hell since. I think there were some tweaks and things to the film as well from like its initial conception to where it is now, but the film follows a woman played by Ella Balinska, who was the main lead in Resident Evil series on Netflix. She was the adult Jade. But her name is Sherry. She's a single mother and a pre-law student. She works at a law firm in LA. She's like dating, trying to just like live her life. Her boss says, "Oh shit, I have a client meeting. Can you go do it for me with this guy? It'll be fine." She goes. He's played by Pilu Asbeck, who was in Game of Thrones. He played Euron Greyjoy, and he's super charming. He's super sweet. They hit it off, and then she goes back to his house, and she escapes covered in blood. And it basically, he tries. We don't know what happens. They don't show it, but she's assaulted, and needs the rest of the movie follows her running through the streets of Los Angeles, trying to survive the night from this guy, and. He's not human. He can smell her blood. And it is all about her basically trying to band with other women to help keep her alive through the night. And it's really heavy-handed, but in a really good way. I mean, this movie it knows exactly what it's trying to do. It's like, men are shit, men and women won't get justice. But it's done in a really clever way in terms of it having, like, her running through Los Angeles all night trying to find ways to protect herself. She doesn't have shoes. Like, she's literally has nothing on her. No phone, nothing. And she's also trying to protect her daughter. And it goes to some, like, really fascinating places. And it's part of it that's hard for me is there's a lot of violence against women in this movie, to a point where I'm like, is this like what's the point? But at the same time, it does kind of show that how, especially rich white men in power can get away with whatever they want, and then women are just kind of fodder for the machine, basically. And it also, something that I also really liked about it was how it handles the idea of having your period, because, you know, having your period, menstruation, is like isn't really addressed a lot of times in movies, unless it's like a comedy, like, she's got her period. But here, menstruation is used as, like, one, she's bleeding on her period so he can smell her, but then she uses it kind of to her advantage in terms of, like, scent, which is really, I think, really cool. I think the problem that arises with that is that this becomes very much like biological women imperative and talking about the power of, like, periods. And I think it's necessary and interesting to see that talked about, but it also does feel a little bit like it's trans exclusionary. And, like, look, I understand that not every single movie can address every single, like, group and gender identity, but at the same time, in the year of our Lord 2022, and making a movie that is a lot of, like, based around, like, the biology of a woman is helping them survive, I think it's a little bit, there's something that, like, feels a little bit, like, underbaked about that concept, especially in, like, you know, this idea of sisterhood with all these biological women, how do, like, trans women factor into it, and, like, transness isn't addressed at all in the movie, which I think was a choice. They didn't want to, like, probably add it to the mix, but it would have been nice to kind of see a little bit of that in there, because so much of it is about violence against women, and trans women experience violence at an even higher rate as well. But that's just, you know, a thought I had watching it, was like, I really like how this is handling it, and it's based on the director's own kind of experience with sexual assault, and I think it handles the topic in a really interesting way that takes, like, sexual assault, rape, revenge narratives into, like, an interesting level. And I really enjoyed it. I just think there are some little like, it could be a little bit more nuanced, but, you know, that's me. But yeah, it's on Prime Video. I think it's heavy-handed, but done really well. I think Ella Balinska in the lead she's absolutely incredible. More roles for her, please. I think she's just so good at keeping up that energy. Because, like, she's on screen almost the entire movie, and she's in a constant state of emotional turmoil, and she doesn't lose it at all, which I think is really impressive. And then Pilu Asbeck is just downright terrifying. He's really good at playing villains. And I was surprised by it, because I was like, it was supposed to come out like 2 years ago. They just getting dumped. But no, it's really good. I think it just got screwed over by the pandemic and the timing, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Cool. Yeah, I've been, you know, I forgot that it came out, honestly. Like, I had gotten, like, press releases for it, and it was just during a really bad time, and then I forgot that it came out, and so I was like, I keep thinking about it when I'm at work or when I'm, like, in bed, is when I'm like, oh shit, I still need to watch that movie. So I'm glad to hear it's really good, because I'm going to try to hopefully watch it in the next week or so. I hope.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I think it's really well done. I think it's a really cool, like, portrait of Los Angeles. It's a really cool kind of like little vignettes almost where she's like running through different groups of people and like experiencing different groups of people.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's weird,
cool.
but like in a good way. Okay, so Southern Gothic cryptids, that's like catnip for me. So
okay, so I've talked about her on the podcast before, but I love graphic novelist Abby Howard. I have been following her since Penny Arcade did a really poorly named reality competition called Strip Search, which was to find, the next comic, and she was on that. I fell in love with her. She's done a whole lot of webcomics. She's done a lot of graphic novels. There is, I don't know if you can see, but that cat up there, for those at home, is her cat as a stuffed animal. I love her work deeply. I have so much respect for her. She did a Kickstarter, like, I want to say 2 years ago, for a video game, a visual novel video game that she and her husband created called Scarlet Hollow. And it started coming out last year. Yeah. And we have 3 episodes out. It's an episodic visual novel. There's going to be 7 episodes. There's 3 episodes out. Episode 4 is supposed to come out before the end of the year. I've been wanting to play it, and I bought a Steam Deck, which is like a Switch but plays Steam games, kind of. And so I've been playing this at night in bed. And like I said, it's a visual novel, so there's not a whole lot of gamification in it. It's more about reading and making choices, but there's some light RPG elements in it where you pick your traits. There's like a trait where you can talk to animals, and that will spawn different conversation topics. There's a trait where you can just be hot, and so you can flirt with everybody. There's a trait where like you have like a mystical knowledge, and so you are reading like weird events that are happening. And the premise behind it is that you are going home to meet, I want to say it's your cousin, whose mother has passed away, and you're going there for the funeral. The funeral is going to be like at the end of the week, and so you are basically staying a week in this kind of Appalachia town where you're staying in a manor that is decrepit and falling apart. Sorry, 1 second. And you basically are trying to basically there's like a story that's going on, and there's like creatures that are preying on livestock. There's houses full of spirits. It's a sleepy town. You meet people in the town. You start to like get involved in like a mystery of what's going on. You can romance people. It's very queer friendly. I have my eyes set on this daddy, and he's named Oscar, and he's really cool. But yeah, there's like cryptids. There's some weird creatures in the forest. One of your friends is a YouTuber that has been documenting the weird cryptid phenomenon in the town, and there's some spooky stories. You make choices. You can decide. Your choices will end up deciding who lives, who dies, the story you see. They're very impactful changes. I'm not exactly sure what the choices are, because I've only played through it once, but like I'm very curious to see how it's all going to pan out. And it's really good. Her writing is solid. It's hand-drawn animation. It looks gorgeous. Oh, yeah. I love it. Oh, yeah. And it's only available on PC, unfortunately, right now. But if you have a computer and you like visual novels, I highly recommend it. I believe the first episode is out for free, so you can download the first episode and play it for free. Yeah. Okay. And that should probably get you hooked, because it has some really strong storytelling elements in it. And the creature design is creepy as fuck.
Fuck yeah! I was looking at some of the images while you were talking, because you've talked about her before, and so not Scarlet Hollow, duh. And Southern Gothic cryptids. I mean, come on, Fuck yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just make Steve download it on his computer.
You should.
He has a PC.
It's great. I love it. I cannot wait for episode 4 to come out. And they're short. Like I think so far I've spent about a little over an hour in each episode. I think I'm like between 3 and 4 hours into it. So it's not it's not going to be, I don't think, an incredibly long series, but it's really interesting and the storytelling is fantastic. So highly recommend it.
Fuck yeah.
But I gotta hear lesbian space necromancers. I gotta hear. What is this? I'm obsessed already.
Okay, so okay, I have been meaning to read this book / this series of books for a while.
Okay.
And I'm finally reading it. And this is the first book in the Locked Tomb series. This is called Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir, I believe is how you pronounce her name. So this is the first book in a quadrilogy. There are going to be 4. There's a total of 4 books. The 4th one is coming out next year. But the first book came out in 2019, and it's YA, but it's good. It's a good horror YA. So it's a YA book, but it's got a lot of gore in it. So this book takes place. I'm almost done with the first book, and I'm still trying to get a handle on the lore because it's a very complicated world, and the way that it's written is you're supposed to be in the position of this character who doesn't really know anything about like the way things are supposed to be in this universe. But essentially, it takes place in a solar system where there are 9 planets, and each planet is dedicated to a house, and this house is each dedicated to a certain kind of necromantic art. And of course, we are in the 9th house, which is the house that's very scary, and everyone's scared of them because they're all very scary, and they protect the locked tomb, and no one knows what's in the locked tomb, and they're all just scary space necromancers who love to make giant things of skeleton, like on the planet, the house of the 9th planet, like skeletons are doing all the farming and shit. And so Gideon has a mysterious background. She was dropped onto the 9th planet as a child. No one knows where she came from, and then she is basically trained as a servant to the house and is treated like shit by the princess Harrowhawk, who is like the princess of the 9th, basically. And then all of this shit happens. They hate each other, but they are summoned to the first planet to train to become like mythical leaders of the people of this. Lectors is what they're called. And so through a series of unfortunate events, Gideon is dragged along to be her cavalier, the necromancer's cavalier, basically like her protector, her bodyguard, and they all have a bunch of lies and secrets that are going into this. And Gideon is a himbo. A female himbo is what me and my friend call her, a female himbo, because it's like this book is written in like this elegant prose of these like great family houses, and then fucking Gideon comes and is like, what in the fuck is all this weird bone shit? Like, it's very funny, this contrast of like, and so when a lot of these like necromancers are talking about like arcane arts and stuff, Gideon, like, we don't know what's going on because Gideon doesn't know what's going on, so it's funny because you're like, who are all these people? Like, they're throwing around like, yes, the Lord Undying, Necro Lord Prime is someone that's talked about a lot, and I still don't know who he is. But Gideon is a lesbian. She is not a necromancer, but she has a crush on her necromancer, who I believe is also a lesbian. So there's like people playing with dead bodies. There's some romance going on, and then it's mostly a murder mystery, but taking place in space with necromantic arts and revenant ghosts and like weird other things going on.
It sounds like fun.
It's fucking incredible. It's, again, lesbian space necromancers. It's awesome. It's gory, and again, like, it's YA, but like, you know, there's a lot of like fucked up shit going on with bodies and things like that, and so I'm like 75% of the way done with the book, and I love it. I've been staying up too late reading it.
It's the best kind of book.
On my phone. It's so fun, and I think it scratches this itch of how much I love like murder mysteries, but makes it not like a stuffy murder mystery, but puts it in this really interesting context. And now I'm getting all these like really crazy answers to things that I've been wondering about this whole time, and it's such a fun read. I'm so excited to read the other 3.
Okay.
But yeah, that's Gideon the Ninth.
Awesome.
It's so good. It's just gay.
I'm
and space.
adding that to my list. I gotta.
Great.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And the Ninth, because they're like such spooky bitches, they wear skull face paint all the time because it's part of like their uniform. They always have to have like the scare. They're like basically like death nuns is what they basically call themselves. And they always do like they're always wearing all black and like a ton of bone jewelry and like bone accoutrement, and just have to look like spooky bitches all the time. And I love them. They're just like they're living the goth scary lifestyle constantly. It's great. It's incredible. So check it out, y'all. It's good as shit. Speaking about things that are good as shit, just kidding. What movie did we watch for our comedy?
Okay. Before we get to that, though, I want to make a slight correction. So Scarlet Hollow is also playable on Mac OS, and it seems like it has a relatively low requirement. And the first episode is free, so you could at least try it on Steam. It's on Steam. I think it's also on Itch.io. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah.
That brings my heart joy. Okay, cool.
There you go.
My back having ass.
I just want to make that correction because it is also out there. But oh boy. Okay, so the film we're going to talk about started as a joke on the Smodcast, which is Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier's podcast. And they discussed an article featuring a Gumtree ad where a homeowner was offering a living situation free of charge if the lodger agrees to dress as a walrus. And the discussion went from there, resulted in like almost an hour of it being spent on telling hypothetical story based on this ad. And then Smith tweeted out walrus yes or walrus no if his fans wanted him to make this movie. They said yes. And so here we have Tusk. A movie that is about a podcaster who is an absolute dickhole, played by Justin Long, who goes to Canada and ends up getting turned into a walrus. Yeah.
Yeah. This made me never want to make a podcast ever again. Because boy oh boy, wow, the perspective on podcasters in 2013, wow.
The funniest...
Not funny. I feel like they really thought they were doing something like, look, we're called the Not See Party. And I was just like, I'm so fucking
seeing that now joke. Also like, in 2022 where we have the rise of neo-Nazis like becoming more visible. It's even less. It has aged even... I mean, it would have been offensive in my opinion then. But, like, now it's even like, ooh, this is aged even worse.
Yeah. And, like, so I had never seen this before. Like, I knew about it. I knew it was the Walrus movie. And I think Kevin Smith is not my favorite. I think this movie kind of solidified that. I think he's a little bit too bro-y for my taste. I think he just is much too like, look at the bros making bro jokes about being bros, and it's just like, it's not for me. Not for me. I can see why people like that and can kind of vibe with that. I just don't think I can. You know, this movie's on so many lists for being like so fucked up and disturbing, and like, yeah, it's pretty fucked up that a guy gets turned into a walrus. Like this I will admit, but they really did try to make a movie when it could have just been a short film. You know what I mean? Like, this movie drags on for so long about things that like are completely unnecessary, and I'm just like, what? You just introduce a bunch of questions I don't have any answers to now about. There's like so many other things you could have like dedicated that runtime towards. Instead, you just have Johnny Depp. What? Johnny Depp as like a weird Quebec cop telling stories for like 30 minutes as they eat like sliders, and I was like, I don't. What is
Yeah,
this movie?
you know, so here's the thing. I was actually enjoying this movie in the beginning when it was mostly Justin Long's character talking with what's his name, Howard Howe, I think, played by Michael Parks.
Yeah, Howard Howe.
Like that, I was really into, and I was like, oh, Kevin Smith's doing some interesting things here by cutting back to the Justin Long's Wallace's girlfriend who he cheated on and is an absolute dick to. I was like, okay, there's some interesting things going on here. I'm digging this. And then after he gets turned into a walrus and we're getting introduced to Johnny Depp, and it just, I don't know. It's at this point that I tweeted out, is this movie offensive to Canadians? Because I found it offensive to Canadians.
I sent a screenshot. I was like, Allie, I don't want to die in Canada, to Josh Korngut, managing editor of Dread Central, in front of the pod. And he was like, fuck you. To me. Which was very funny. But the pacing is so fucked in this movie. Because I was like, I thought him coming the walrus.
Me
was
too.
like
I thought
the,
that was going to be the final reveal.
Of the movie. I thought that was like the final act, but no, he becomes a walrus pretty quick, and then it's just them. It's just like the girlfriend and the best friend trying to find him, but it's not done in an interesting way whatsoever. Like, none of the conflicts about him being a cheating asshole. It's never really done. It doesn't go anywhere. And like, I think, again, I like the beginning a lot with this interesting dynamic of like this arrogant podcaster and this weird old guy. I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those, like, really interesting, like, kind of musings that a guy talking about, like, being a mad scientist kind of situation, and it'll be one of those kind of chamber pieces. And then it just got a little weird black and white flashbacks and, like, flashback scenes, and it just felt like such a movie where they loved the idea, but they didn't know how to execute it, and they executed it in probably one of the most boring ways possible.
I mean...
Which is wild to say about a movie about a guy gets turned into a fucking walrus, and his name is Wallace, and he gets turned into a walrus.
Listeners,
and he lives in his zoo.
Tweets. So, you know, when I'm at work, I'm not able to have my phone, and so I'll come out to lunch and I'll check my phone at that time, and sometimes I get. She does.
I love to leave Terry some
and
messages.
So I come out at lunch and I have Tusk is something. Wait, his name is Walrus, and he becomes a walrus. That's Johnny Depp?
Because again, I watch things while I work, and because I tried to watch this last night when I was stoned and I fell asleep. It wasn't the movie's fault. That was purely my fault. But yeah, but I love leaving Terry a little messages to come back to it. And then. Day. Well, because I was trying to figure out who the fuck that guy was, and I said Johnny Depp, and I was like, his daughter's in it. What? His daughter's in it, too.
Oh, I think that she and Kevin Smith's daughter is also in it. They're the two clerks at the counter. Mm-hmm. And Harley Quinn. There's like a spin-off involving them, Yoga Hosers, and Johnny Depp is in it, and those two characters are in it. I don't know.
I just think Kevin Smith is for a very specific brand of person, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not trying to say that he's a bad person. I just think his humor is not for me. I think he's very much the kind of guy that's like, look at all these weird, quirky characters. I haven't seen Clerks, so I don't know if Clerks is better or where that falls within this whole scenario. But I know that he just likes to create all these characters that all exist in the same universe, and it's one of those kinds of kind of comic book douchebag kind of scenarios.
You know the wildest part about this movie, though? It's an A24 movie.
What? Which part?
And XYZ.
And XYZ. I was like, huh. Good for them.
A24 is sure up their game.
A24. Look. They upped their game, but I also want them to make more movies late. I mean, they have The Whale coming out, but that's not even that's a whole other fucking nightmare of a situation. But I want more movies like this. They swing for it, and yeah, it wasn't the most successful movie in my opinion, but it's kind of weird.
There's some gross points.
A24?
There's a moment
elevated horror
where Wallace as the walrus he like his neck goes inside his skin suit, and I went, oh, that is so gross. It was so gross looking the way that his neck like retracts in.
Well, there were some really interesting parts where like Howard is in the suit and he's like teaching him how to fight as a walrus. Like I think there are some really interesting moments where like yeah, and like when he pulls him into the water and he sees all the other previous walrus experiments in the water. I just think there was so much more they could have explored there instead of just like a gag. I think they really could have made something even like super fucked up and weird. I just think they're like, oh, it's a funny gag, and I'm like, but you could have taken it a step further because it is like a funny gag, but there's some interesting stuff that you're introducing here that you throw away to have Johnny Depp on the screen for no fucking reason. I'm sorry.
I feel like I don't know. I felt like it's two different movies. There's a movie that is like elevated for a Kevin Smith movie, and then it's like at the midpoint he goes back to some of his worst impulses. And he doesn't pay off any of the things. Because, like, one of the things that I noticed when I made a note of is that when he is recording his podcast with, by the way, Haley Joel Osment as his podcasting host.
Woefully underutilized.
When he's talking with him, they're showing a video of a guy that they're calling Kill Bill Kid because the kid is swinging a sword and ends up hacking off his leg. With really bad CG blood, by the way. And Justin Long's Wallace talks about how, it's kind of fucked up. He's like, but now he's famous. He has a ton of hits. Like, he did this and now, he's famous. And I was like, okay, so we're setting this up so that, like, maybe by the end of it, we're going to pay that off with this walrus suit. Like, hey, look, you're a fucking walrus, but now you got all these hits. But no, we don't even really do that. There's no payoff to that moment. That's like a Chekhov's moment right there that doesn't end up getting paid off in any stretch of the imagination. Like, he just ends up in a zoo crying.
He's in a zoo? That's all they did to him? They just put him in a fucking concrete zoo?
That was I was like, no attempts to get him out of that thing. Like, no, nothing. I needed at least to see an X-ray of what he looks like.
Me too.
All that skin.
So many questions.
So many questions.
But yeah. Oh, me too.
I'm glad I finally saw it. So now that I can say that I saw it, but it definitely does not. I tweeted, Tusk is sure a movie, and so many people are like, are you sure it's even a movie? And I was like, honestly, you're not wrong. Like, it definitely just kind of feels like a bunch of ideas.
What's also funny is, like, while the movie in that first half of the movie, I was really jiving with it, and I was like, Cass, I kind of want to see my roommate. I was like, I kind of want to see Yoga Hosers now, like the sequel. And by the end of it, I was like, no, I don't. I take that back. I don't want to see it.
I revoke my statement.
So this one wasn't a winner for me.
Yeah. So, yeah, not same here, but But we are ending our horror comedy series on a high note next week. Terry, what?
Oh my gosh, we are watching Tragedy Girls, a movie that I absolutely love and I've written an article about, and it's so queer, and I will fight anyone that says it's not queer because it's very queer. And I can't wait to talk about it.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm very excited to watch it. I bought it on Blu-ray. I have it.
It's really good. I cannot wait.
So I'm very excited.
But who are we chatting with on Monday, Mary Beth?
So on Monday, we are chatting with Pierre Sagaridis. Pardon me if that is the incorrect pronunciation. Who is the filmmaker behind the film Two Witches, which I talked about just a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. And he brought with him The Devil's Advocate, starring Keanu Reeves
Charlize Theron,
and
a very baby-faced
Charlize Theron.
Very baby-faced.
Good for her. So we haven't had the conversation yet, but I bet
I'm really excited to chat about this movie. I've been watching it because it is a little long. It's 2.5 hours, so I've been watching it sort of like interspersed over the last few days. And I cannot wait to talk with him. We'll verify how to pronounce his last name, so we apologize, Pierre, if we've butchered it today. But
And y'all can hear my story about this movie that I thought was a fever dream, and I've realized it's actually not a fever dream.
I can't wait.
Thumbs up. All right, listeners, so you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Did you watch a film, read a book, or play a video game that we talked about this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should be covering? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I'm at
Gaily Dreadful.
McAndrews. And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter.
And please don't forget to review,
Podcast.
rate, subscribe, and sign up for a Patreon, because next month we are going to be giving you not only Fresh Wounds, but we're also going to dig into a little mini-sode on Barbarian. So get signed up for it, because you could also watch this and you could see my really cute Josh shirt.
Really cute. And then you can see my cool Shin Godzilla shirt.
Yeah. The two
and my hands, where I ripped off most of the nails on this one and haven't done it quite yet on this one. Woo!
Give you time, right?
What?
Give you time.
Give me time. Or I'll go and get them taken off professionally like I should have, but who cares? Details. Become a patron. Thanks a lot.
Please.
Anyway, thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.